Silas Brennan pressed his dying daughter against his chest and begged God for a miracle he didn't deserve. 4 months ago, he'd buried his wife. Tonight, he'd bury their baby girl. Rosie hadn't cried in 6 hours. She was too weak, too far gone. And every soul in Bitter Creek had turned their backs on him when he asked for help. But somewhere out there in that killing blizzard, a 13-year-old girl was fighting through the snow with a secret that would change everything. If you want to see how one desperate night created an unlikely family, subscribe now and stay until the end. Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. The wind hit Mercy Dawson like a fist. She stumbled, clutching Sammy tighter against her chest. The baby whimpered once, then went quiet. Too quiet. "Stay with me," she whispered through cracked lips. "Please, Sammy, stay with me." 3 days. She'd been running for 3 days. No food, no shoes. Nothing but the flour sack dress on her back and the 11-month-old boy in her arms. Behind her, somewhere, was Bitter Creek. Behind her was Ezekiel Marsh and his root cellar and his leather belt and his promises of what he'd do to Sammy if she didn't behave. Mercy's bare feet had stopped hurting 2 hours ago. That scared her more than the pain. She knew what that meant. She'd seen frostbite take old Widow Porter's toes last winter, seen the black creep up her foot like rot on an apple. But she kept moving. Because stopping meant dying, and dying meant Sammy would die too. The snow came sideways now, so thick she couldn't see 3 feet ahead. Every breath burned. Every step was a war. Then she saw it. A light. Faint. Flickering. Maybe 100 yards ahead. "There," she breathed. "You see that, Sammy? That shelter. That's—" Her foot caught on something buried in the snow. She went down hard, twisting her body to take the impact instead of the baby. Pain exploded through her shoulder. She bit down on her lip until she tasted blood. Sammy started crying. "Shh, it's all right." Mercy struggled to her knees, brushing snow from his face. "We're almost there. We're almost—" She stopped. Sammy wasn't just crying. He was rooting, turning his face toward her chest, searching. He was hungry again. Mercy looked down at her dress, stained dark across the front. Her milk had come in 4 months ago, right after Sammy's mama died birthing him. Nobody could explain it. The doctor called it impossible. Ezekiel Marsh called it demon-touched. But it had kept Sammy alive when nothing else would. "Just a little longer," she promised him. "Let me get us inside first." She pushed herself up. Her legs trembled. Her vision blurred. The light ahead grew larger. A barn. Massive. Built solid against the Wyoming winter. Mercy's frozen fingers found the latch. For one terrible moment it wouldn't budge. Then something gave, and the door swung inward. She fell inside. The sudden absence of wind made her gasp. Warmth. Relative warmth wrapped around her like a blanket. The smell of hay and animals and life filled her lungs. Mercy crawled to the nearest corner, pulling Sammy with her. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely unbutton her dress. "Come on," she whispered. "Eat, sweetheart. Eat while you can." Sammy latched on immediately, his tiny body relaxing as he fed. Mercy leaned against the wall and let herself breathe. They'd made it. For now. 3 miles away, Silas Brennan stood in his kitchen, watching his daughter die. Rosie lay in his arms, limp as a rag doll. Her skin had turned gray. Her breathing came shallow and fast, then slow and labored, then shallow again. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. "Please," Silas whispered. "Just try. Just a little." He lifted the bottle to her lips again. Goat's milk warmed just right, the way Clara used to do it before. Rosie turned her head away. A thin trail of milk dribbled down her chin. Silas wiped it gently with his thumb. His hands were shaking. When had his hands started shaking? "You gotta eat, baby girl. You gotta—" His voice broke. 4 months. Clara had been gone 4 months. Bled out right there in the bedroom, while the midwife shook her head and said there was nothing to be done. Rosie had come into the world screaming. Clara had left it in silence. And now Rosie was leaving too. Silas had tried everything: goat's milk, sugar water, wet cloths dipped in broth. Nothing worked. Rosie rejected it all. She needed mother's milk, real milk, and there was none to be had. "I tried," Silas said to the empty kitchen, to the photograph of Clara on the mantel. To God if he was listening. "I tried everything." This morning he'd done the unthinkable. He'd ridden into town, walked into the church, stood before 40 people with his dying daughter in his arms, and begged if anyone nursing might help. The silence had been deafening. Then Edwin Marsh had muttered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Should have thought ahead before marrying a woman 20 years younger. Lord's justice, that's what this is." Nobody had disagreed. Nobody had offered to help. Silas had walked out with his head held high, but inside something had cracked. Something that might never heal. Now he stood in his kitchen at midnight holding his daughter, waiting for her to die. The wind howled outside. The fire crackled low. Rosie's breath rattled. "One more try," Silas said suddenly. "Just one more." Old wives' tale. Desperate nonsense. But he'd heard it somewhere. Goat's milk straight from the animal, still warm, sometimes worked when nothing else would. It wouldn't work. But he had to try. Silas wrapped Rosie in another blanket and stepped out into the storm. The cold hit him like a physical blow. Silas ducked his head and pushed forward, lantern in one hand, baby in the other. The barn was 50 yards away. Might as well have been 50 miles in this wind. Snow filled his eyes, his lungs, his boots. Keep moving. He thought about Clara, about the day they'd met. She'd been 22, working as a secretary in town. He'd been 42, a retired Texas Ranger with a ranch and a reputation, and nothing much else to offer. She'd married him anyway. "You're not nothing," she'd said on their wedding night. "You're everything I've been looking for." He'd never understood why she chose him. Never stopped being grateful. Now she was gone, and their daughter was going too. The barn door loomed out of the white. Silas fumbled with the latch, got it open, stumbled inside. The relative quiet was disorienting. Animals shifted nervously in their stalls. His lantern cast wild shadows across the walls. "All right, girl," he muttered, moving toward the goats. "Let's see if—" He stopped. Something was wrong. There was a shape in the corner, small, huddled, not one of his animals. Silas raised the lantern higher. A girl sat there, no more than 13. Her dress was nothing but a flour sack stained dark across the chest. Her feet were bare and blue. Her face was gaunt, eyes sunken. She had an infant boy on one side and Rosie on the other. Both babies were nursing. "What the—" Silas couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "How did you—" The girl looked up at him, and her eyes were ancient, old as the mountains, old as pain itself. "Your baby was crying," she said simply. "I heard her from outside." Silas watched Rosie drink. Really drink. Her tiny hand was clutched in the fabric of the girl's dress. Her color was already changing gray, fading to pink. The sound of his daughter swallowing was the most beautiful thing he'd ever heard. "Who are you?" His voice came out rough, broken. "Mercy Dawson." The girl shifted the infant boy higher on her hip. "This here's Sammy. He's 11 months. I'm 13. "How did you—" Silas gestured helplessly at her chest. "You're just a child yourself." Something flickered in Mercy's eyes. Pain, shame, defiance. "My body does what it does," she said flatly. "Sammy's mama died having him. Nobody else would feed him, so I did." Silas set down the lantern. His hands were still shaking, but for a different reason now. "How long you been in my barn?" "Just tonight. Found the door unlocked during the storm." "Where'd you come from?" Mercy's jaw tightened. "Don't matter." It matters to me. She looked at him for a long moment, measuring, deciding. Bitter Creek, she finally said. The orphanage. Silas felt his stomach drop. Marsh's place? Mercy flinched at the name. That was answer enough. He hurt you, Silas said. Not a question. Mercy didn't respond, but her hands moved unconsciously to her wrists, rubbing at the rope burns hidden beneath her ragged sleeves. Silas had seen marks like that before, in his ranger days, on prisoners, on women who'd been kept against their will. You ran, he said quietly. 3 days ago. In this weather, barefoot with a baby. Mercy's chin lifted. He was gonna take Sammy away. Said bastard children belong somewhere else. Said there were families back east willing to pay good money for healthy babies. The words hung in the air like smoke. Silas thought about the rumors he'd heard over the years. Babies at Marsh's orphanage that came and went without explanation. Young women who arrived pregnant and were never seen again. Whispers about money changing hands about children shipped east like cattle. He'd never paid much attention. Never been his business. Maybe it should have been. He know you're gone, Silas asked. By now, yeah. He'll come looking. Mercy met his gaze without flinching. I know. Rosie made a soft sound of contentment unlatching from Mercy's breast. Her eyes were closed. She was sleeping. Actually sleeping, not drifting toward death. Your daughter's gonna be all right, Mercy said. She just needed real milk. My milk. Silas stared at this impossible girl. 13 years old, starving, frozen, running for her life with a baby in her arms. And she'd stopped to save his daughter. Come to the house, he heard himself say. Mercy tensed. I can leave come morning. Just let me get warm first. You ain't leaving. Silas pulled off his coat and draped it over her thin shoulders. Not tonight, not tomorrow. Not until you're fed and rested and those feet are looked after. Mister, I can't. Name's Silas, and you can. You will. He softened his voice. You saved my little girl's life, Mercy Dawson. I ain't about to send you back out into that storm. Mercy studied him warily, looking for the catch, looking for the cruelty. Silas understood. He'd seen it before in abused horses and beaten dogs. That constant vigilance, that inability to trust. I ain't gonna hurt you, he said gently. Or the boy. You got my word. Words don't mean much, Mercy said. I've learned that. Then watch what I do. Judge me by that. A long silence stretched between them. Then Mercy nodded once, gathering both babies in her arms. All right, she said. But if you try anything, you'll what? For the first time, something like a smile touched her lips. I've got a knife in my pocket. Don't think I won't use it. Silas almost laughed. Almost. Fair enough, he said. Let's get inside. The house was warm. That was the first thing Mercy noticed. Warm and clean and quiet. No shouting, no locks, no darkness. She stood just inside the door, dripping melted snow on the wooden floor, both babies in her arms. Her eyes moved constantly, cataloging exits, measuring distances, planning escape routes. Old habits. Kitchen's through there, Silas said, hanging up his coat. I'll put some stew on. You need to eat. Mercy didn't move. Silas turned back. Understanding crossed his weathered face. There's a door in the back, he said quietly. Leads to the yard. It's unlocked. Always is. Mercy relaxed just slightly. The spare room's down the hall, Silas continued. Got a stove in there. Bed's already made up. You can sleep there with the little ones. Why? The question stopped him. Why what? Why are you helping me? Mercy's voice was steady, but underneath it Silas heard something else. Confusion. Fear. The desperate need to understand before she could trust. He thought about it. Really thought. Because you didn't have to stop, he finally said. You were running for your life. Freezing. Starving. You could have kept going, found shelter somewhere else. Nobody would have blamed you. He looked at Rosie sleeping peacefully in Mercy's arms. But you heard my baby crying. And you stopped. You risked everything to save a child you'd never met. His voice roughened. That makes you good, Mercy Dawson. Better than most folks I know. Better than the whole damn town that turned their backs on me today. Mercy blinked. Something shifted in her ancient eyes. They wouldn't help you. Not a one. Silas's jaw tightened at the memory. Stood in church and begged. Got told I deserved what I was getting for marrying a younger woman. Mercy's expression darkened. That's cruel. That's people. Not all people. She looked down at Sammy, then at Rosie. Sammy's mama saved him with her last breath, pushed him into my arms and said, "Don't let them have him. That's people too." Silas stared at her, 13 years old, and she understood something that took most folks a lifetime to learn. You're right, he admitted. Not all people. Another silence, this one easier. I'll eat, Mercy said finally. And I'll stay tonight, but tomorrow? Tomorrow we'll figure out together, Silas interrupted. For now, just rest. You're safe here. Mercy wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe. But believing was dangerous. Believing got you hurt. Still, she followed him to the kitchen, sat at the table, ate the stew he placed before her 2 bowls, then 3, her starving body demanding more. Silas watched her eat without comment. No judgment, no disgust at her manners. When she finally pushed back from the table, he spoke. Can I ask you something? Mercy tensed. Here it came. The questions she dreaded. That milk of yours, Silas said carefully. How long's it been coming in? 4 months, since Sammy was born. And you're 13. Yes. Silas shook his head slowly. Ain't never heard of such a thing. Doctor called it impossible. Mercy's voice went flat. Mr. Marsh called it demon-touched. Said I was cursed. Said that's why he had to keep me locked up. To protect other people from my wickedness. Silas's face darkened with anger. That's horse shit. Mercy blinked at the profanity. You ain't cursed, Silas continued firmly. And you ain't demon-touched. What you got is a gift, girl. A miracle. You've been keeping that baby alive when nobody else could. Just like you're keeping my Rosie alive now. Mercy felt something crack open in her chest. Something she'd kept locked away for months. You really believe that? I do. She looked away, blinking hard. She would not cry. She would not. Marsh is gonna come looking, she said instead. You should know that. He don't let go of what he thinks is his. Let him come. Mr. Silas, you don't understand. He's got the sheriff in his pocket, the judge too. He owns half the county. People do what he says or they lose everything. Silas leaned forward, and for the first time Mercy saw the steel beneath his weathered exterior, the hard edge of a man who'd spent 20 years as a Texas Ranger. I've faced down outlaws, rustlers, and men who'd shoot you for looking at them wrong, he said quietly. I ain't afraid of some banker with delusions of grandeur. You should be. Mercy met his gaze. I've seen what he does to people who cross him. I've seen... She stopped. Some things couldn't be spoken. Some horrors had to stay locked away. Silas waited. Just be careful, Mercy finished. That's all I'm saying. Silas nodded slowly. I will. But tonight you sleep. Those babies need you strong. Everything else can wait till morning. He stood clearing the dishes. Silas. He turned. Thank you. Mercy's voice was barely a whisper. For believing me. For not calling me what he called me. Silas set down the dishes, crossed to where she sat, knelt so they were eye to eye. "You listen to me, Mercy Dawson. What you can do, what your body does that ain't evil. That's love. That's sacrifice. That's a mother's heart in a girl's body, and don't you ever let anyone tell you different." Mercy's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "My mama used to say that," she whispered. "Before she died, she said I was born with a mother's heart." She was right. For one moment they just looked at each other. Two broken people in a cold kitchen on a winter night, both carrying losses too heavy to name, both fighting to survive. Then Mercy stood gathering the babies. "I should feed them again before I sleep. Rooms down the hall. Holler if you need anything." She paused at the doorway. "Silas, your wife, the one who died. What was her name?" The question caught him off guard. Nobody had asked about Clara since the funeral. People in town avoided the subject like it might be contagious. "Clara," he said. "Her name was Clara." "That's pretty." Mercy shifted Rosie in her arms. "Rosie looks like her. Same nose, same chin." Silas couldn't speak. His throat had closed up. "Good night," Mercy said softly. And then she was gone, padding down the hall in her borrowed socks, carrying his daughter and hers. Silas stood alone in the kitchen for a long time. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, for the first time in 4 months, there was life in his house again. Crying babies, and the smell of milk, and the soft sound of a girl's voice singing a lullaby. He walked to the window, looked out at the storm. Somewhere in Bitter Creek, Ezekiel Marsh was probably raising hell, sending out men, making plans. He'd come for Mercy eventually. Come with badges and papers and all the weight of the law behind him. Let him come. Silas Brennan had buried his wife. He'd nearly buried his daughter. He had nothing left to lose. But now, for the first time since Clara died, he had something to fight for. Tomorrow would bring trouble. He knew that with the certainty of old experience. But tonight his daughter was alive. Tonight a broken girl and her baby brother had found shelter from the storm. Tonight was enough. Silas turned from the window and went to check on them all one more time before the dawn. Mercy woke to the sound of hoofbeats. She was on her feet before her eyes fully opened, heart slamming against her ribs. Sammy stirred in the bed beside Rosie, both babies warm and fed and sleeping. The hoofbeats grew louder, closer. Mercy grabbed the knife from under her pillow and pressed herself against the wall beside the window. She'd slept in her clothes. Always did. Never knew when you'd have to run. Through the frost-covered glass, she saw a single rider approaching through the early morning snow. Not Marsh's men. They always traveled in packs. This was a woman, older, sitting straight in the saddle despite the cold. The kitchen door opened and closed. Silas's boots crossed the floor. Mercy crept to the bedroom door, cracking it open. "Stay inside," Silas called without turning around. "I know her. She's safe." Mercy didn't move. Safe was a word she'd stopped believing in. Silas opened the front door. Cold air rushed in. "Hattie, didn't expect you in this weather." The woman's voice was sharp as broken glass. "Heard what happened at the church yesterday. Came to see if you'd lost your mind or just your pride." "Little of both, I reckon." "That baby's still alive." A pause. Then, "She is now." "How?" Silas didn't answer immediately. Mercy heard his boots shift on the wooden floor. "Come inside, Hattie. It's a long story." The woman called Hattie entered the house. Mercy heard her stamping snow from her boots, heard the rustle of a heavy coat being removed. "Coffee's fresh," Silas said. "Don't want coffee. Want answers." A chair scraped. "Word in town is you've got visitors. The kind Ezekiel Marsh is very interested in finding." Mercy's blood went cold. "Word travels fast," Silas said carefully. "Faster than you'd think." Hattie's voice dropped. "Baker came by my place this morning. Deputy Baker. Asked if I'd seen a girl traveling with a baby. Said she was dangerous, mentally disturbed. Said she'd stolen the infant from the orphanage. That's so. That's what he said. A pause. Now I'm asking you, Silas Brennan, is there a girl here, and is she dangerous? Mercy's hand tightened on her knife. She could go out the back, take Sammy, leave Rosie, run, but Rosie would die without her milk. And Silas had been kind. Before she could decide, Silas spoke. There's a girl, 13 years old, half-starved, half-frozen feet so frostbitten, I don't know if she'll keep all her toes. She walked through that blizzard barefoot for 3 days to save that baby from Marsh. Silence. And the dangerous part? Hattie asked. Only to anyone who tries to take her back. Another silence. Longer this time. Then Hattie laughed. Not a happy sound, something harder, darker. Well, she said, guess I'd better meet this girl. Mercy stepped back from the door, heart racing. She looked at Sammy and Rosie in the bed still sleeping. She could hide the knife, pretend she'd just woken up, play the innocent child. No, she was done pretending. Mercy tucked the knife into her waistband, smoothed her borrowed nightdress, and walked out to meet whatever came next. Hattie Caldwell was not what she expected. The woman was 68 if she was a day, with iron gray hair pulled back severe from a face that had seen hard weather and harder times. Her eyes were the color of winter sky, and they fixed on Mercy with an intensity that made her want to step back. She didn't. So, Hattie said, "You're the girl." "Yes, ma'am." "You got a name?" "Mercy Dawson." Hattie studied her. Mercy felt those eyes cataloging everything: her thin frame, her rope-scarred wrists, the milk stains on her dress. "How old are you, girl?" "13. "And the baby you brought with you?" "Sammy, 11 months. His mama died birthing him." "Where's his daddy?" Mercy's jaw tightened. "Don't know. Don't care." Something flickered in Hattie's eyes. Approval, maybe. Or recognition. "Baker says you stole that child." "Baker's a liar." Mercy's voice didn't waver. "Sammy's mama put him in my arms while she was bleeding out. Made me promise to keep him safe. That ain't stealing. That's a deathbed oath." Hattie turned to Silas. "She always this mouthy?" "She's been here 12 hours, hasn't stopped talking back yet." "Good." Hattie returned her attention to Mercy. "Quiet girls don't survive. You want coffee?" The shift caught Mercy off guard. "Yes, ma'am." "Sit down, then." Hattie moved to the stove, pouring 3 cups. "You too, Silas. We got planning to do." Silas sat. So did Mercy, though she kept one eye on the door. Hattie set the cups down and lowered herself into a chair with a grunt. "Let's get something straight," she said. "I've known Ezekiel Marsh for 30 years. Known what he is for most of that time. Couldn't prove it. Couldn't stop it. But I know." She looked at Mercy. "My daughter Josephine worked at that orphanage 12 years ago. Pretty girl, smart as a whip, asked too many questions." Hattie's voice went flat. "One day she was there. Next day, she was gone. Marsh told everyone she'd run off to California. Left a note and everything." Mercy's stomach dropped. A note. Handwriting wasn't quite right, but close enough that people believed it. Hattie's hands tightened around her cup. "I didn't believe it. Still don't." "Mrs. Caldwell." "Hattie." "Hattie." Mercy swallowed. "I saw things at that orphanage. Heard things. Girls who asked questions. They disappeared. Marsh said they were transferred, sent to better places." "Where were they really sent?" Mercy's throat closed up. Some memories were too dark to speak. "There's a mine," she finally whispered. "Blackstone Mine, on the ridge west of town. It's supposed to be abandoned. It ain't." Hattie and Silas exchanged a look. "I've seen wagons going up there," Silas said slowly. "Late at night. Thought it was strange, but—" "But you didn't ask," Hattie finished. "None of us did. That's how he gets away with it. We all looked the other way. Not anymore. Silas's voice hardened. That girl in there, Mercy, she's got Rosie alive. First time my daughter's eaten in 2 days. I'm not letting Marsh take her back. Not for anything. Didn't say you should. Hattie leaned forward. I'm saying we need a plan. Marsh has the sheriff, has the judge, has half the town in debt to his bank. We go up against him with just righteous anger, we'll lose. So what do you suggest? Hattie turned to Mercy. Girl, you said you saw things. What kind of things? Mercy looked at her hands, remembered, wished she could forget. Ledgers, she said quietly. Mr. Marsh keeps ledgers. Names, dates, money. How much families paid for babies. How much he made from the girls' work at the mine. Where does he keep these ledgers? Safe in his study, behind the painting of his dead wife. Hattie's eyebrows rose. You've seen them. Once. Mercy's voice dropped. I was cleaning his study. He came back early, caught me looking. Her hand moved unconsciously to her back, where the scars from his belt still ached in cold weather. That's when he started locking me in the cellar. Silas's face had gone dark with fury. Hattie just nodded like this confirmed something she'd long suspected. If we could get those ledgers, she began, you'd need proof they're real. Mercy interrupted. Marsh would just say I made it up. Crazy girl, demon-touched, can't trust a word she says. Then we need a witness, someone respectable. There's no one. Mercy shook her head. Everyone in town either works for him or owes him money. Who's going to stand up and call Ezekiel Marsh a liar? A sound from the bedroom. Rosie crying. Mercy was on her feet instantly. I need to feed her. Go, Silas said. We'll figure this out. Mercy hurried down the hall, grateful for the escape. The conversation had dredged up memories she'd worked hard to bury. In the bedroom, she lifted Rosie from the bed and settled into the rocking chair. The baby latched on immediately, her cries fading to contented sounds. Sammy was still sleeping. Good. He'd been through too much these past days. Mercy looked down at Rosie, at the daughter of a man she'd known for less than a day. A stranger who'd shown her more kindness in 12 hours than Ezekiel Marsh had in 12 months. Your daddy's a good man, she whispered. You're lucky. Rosie just kept drinking, her tiny hand pressed against Mercy's chest. From the kitchen, Mercy heard voices, planning, arguing, trying to find a way forward that didn't end with all of them dead or worse. She'd heard planning before, at the orphanage when girls whispered about escape. They'd planned and planned and planned, and in the end, they'd all been caught, punished. Some of them had vanished entirely. This would be different. It had to be. Rosie finished nursing and fell asleep against Mercy's shoulder. She was heavier than Sammy, healthier. The milk was doing its work. Mercy burped her gently, then laid her back in the bed beside Sammy. 2 babies, 2 lives depending on her. 3 if she counted herself. She didn't. The front door opened and closed. Hoofbeats receding. Hattie leaving. Silas appeared in the bedroom doorway. She's gone to gather information, he said. See what's being said in town. What Marsh is planning. He's planning to find me. Mercy didn't look up from the babies. That's all he ever plans when something gets away from him. Hattie thinks we might have a chance. If we can get those ledgers. It's too dangerous. Everything's dangerous right now. Silas crossed to the window, looking out at the snow-covered yard. Running's dangerous. Staying's dangerous. Fighting back's dangerous. Only question is which danger we choose. Mercy finally looked at him. Why do you care? You don't know me. Don't owe me nothing. Silas was quiet for a long moment. When I was a ranger, he said finally, I saw a lot of bad things. Men who hurt women and children. Men who used their power to destroy anyone weaker than them. He turned to face her. I told myself I was fighting for justice, but mostly I was just doing a job, following orders, collecting my pay. He sat down in the chair opposite her. Clara, my wife, she changed that. She believed in things. Really believed. Not just in God, but in goodness. In people helping each other because it was right, not because they had to. His voice roughened. She worked for Marsh once. Did you know that before I met her? Secretary at his bank. She quit after 6 months. Never told me why. But sometimes at night she'd get this look, like she was remembering something she couldn't talk about. Mercy felt her heart rate pick up. Did she ever say anything? Once. Silas leaned forward. About a month before she died, she said, "Silas, there are things in this town that need to be brought into the light. I tried to do it once. I failed. But someday someone will succeed." You think she knew about the girls, the babies? I think she knew something. Silas's jaw tightened. I think that's why she died. Mercy's blood went cold. What do you mean? Clara was healthy, strong. The pregnancy was going fine. Then 2 weeks before Rosie was born, she started getting weak. Couldn't keep food down. Said everything tasted strange. He stood abruptly pacing. I thought it was just the pregnancy. But now. Marsh sent tea. A gift for the expectant mother, he said. Clara didn't drink it. She didn't trust him. But what if he found another way? What if... His voice broke. Mercy stood slowly, crossed to him, put a hand on his arm. You think Marsh killed her? I don't know. Silas's eyes were wet. I don't know anything anymore, except that man has taken everything from me, my wife, nearly my daughter. And now he wants to take the one person who can save her. Mercy tightened her grip on his arm. Then we don't let him win. Silas looked at her. This 13-year-old girl with the ancient eyes and the mother's heart. You've got more courage than half the men in this county, he said quietly. Courage ain't got nothing to do with it. Mercy stepped back. I'm just too angry to be scared. Before Silas could respond, the sound of hoofbeats reached them again. Multiple horses this time, coming fast. Mercy's hand went to her knife. Get the babies, Silas said sharply. Take them to the root cellar. There's a door in the floor of the pantry. I'm not hiding. Mercy. Last time I hid, Marsh found me anyway. Her voice was hard. I'm done hiding. Silas looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Stay behind me. Don't speak unless I tell you to. They moved together to the front of the house. Through the window, Mercy saw 3 riders approaching. One of them wore a badge. Deputy Baker. Silas grabbed his rifle from beside the door. Mercy stayed back knife, hidden in the folds of her dress. The riders stopped in the yard. Baker dismounted first, his square face twisted in a smug smile. Brennan, he called. Come on out. We need to talk. Silas opened the door and stepped onto the porch, rifle cradled in his arms. Not pointing at anyone. Not yet. Baker, what brings you out here? Official business. Baker's eyes swept the house, trying to see past Silas. Got a report of a missing girl and stolen baby. Word is they might be here. Word from who? Don't matter. Baker took a step forward. I need to search your property. You got a warrant? Baker's smile flickered. Don't need one when there's a child's welfare at stake. The girl's disturbed. Dangerous. Took that baby right from his cradle. That's so. Silas didn't move. What's the baby's name? Baker hesitated. What? The baby that was stolen. What's his name? I don't see how that's... You're telling me a baby was taken but you don't know his name? Silas shook his head. That's some fine police work, Baker. The other 2 men shifted uneasily on their horses. They were Marsh's men. Mercy recognized them. Private security, not real lawmen. I don't have time for games, Brennan. Baker's voice hardened. Step aside or I'll have you arrested for obstruction. On whose authority? Mine. Silas laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. Let me tell you something, Deputy. I spent 20 years as a Texas Ranger. I've arrested men who'd kill you for looking at them wrong. I've faced down outlaws and rustlers and Comanche war parties. You think you scare me? He raised the rifle slightly, not pointing, not yet. You want to search my property, you bring a proper warrant, signed by a proper judge. Until then, you're trespassing. Baker's face went red. This isn't over, Brennan. No. Silas agreed. I don't reckon it is. The standoff held for a long moment. Then Baker turned and remounted his horse. Mr. Marsh will hear about this, he said. I'm counting on it. Baker wheeled his horse around and rode away, his men following. Mercy watched them go, her heart hammering. Silas waited until they were out of sight before lowering his rifle. That was stupid, Mercy said. Probably. He'll be back. Definitely. Silas turned to her. But not today. Baker's a bully, but he's also a coward. He won't move without Marsh's explicit orders. How long do we have? Silas considered. Day, maybe 2. Marsh will want to do this legal-like, make it look proper. He'll get his warrant, get his posse come back with enough men to make sure I can't refuse. Then we need to be gone before that happens. No. Silas shook his head. Running won't solve anything. He'll just keep hunting you. We need to end this. How? Before Silas could answer, another rider appeared on the road. Coming from the opposite direction Baker had gone. Mercy tensed. Silas raised his rifle again. But as the rider drew closer, Silas lowered it. Hattie, he muttered. That woman moves faster than anyone I know. Hattie Caldwell rode into the yard at a gallop, reining in hard. Her face was pale. We've got trouble, she said without preamble. Baker was just here. I know. I passed them on the road. Hattie dismounted. That's not the trouble I'm talking about. She looked at Mercy. Girl, you said the baby's mama died birthing him. You remember her name? Sarah. Mercy's voice was barely a whisper. Sarah Turner. Hattie nodded grimly. That's what I thought. Sarah Turner was the sheriff's daughter. Silas went still. Turner, Walt Turner. The same. Hattie's jaw tightened. She disappeared 2 years ago. Turner told everyone she'd run off with a traveling salesman. But I never believed it. Now I know why. Mercy felt sick. She was at the orphanage. I saw her there. She was pregnant. Marsh said the father was some drifter who'd moved on. Said he was doing Turner a favor keeping the scandal quiet. And Turner believed him. Turner didn't have a choice. Mercy's voice was bitter. Marsh owns him. Owns everyone. Hattie and Silas exchanged a look. If Turner finds out Marsh has been lying about Sarah this whole time, Silas began. He might turn on Marsh, Hattie finished. But it's a risk. Turner's been in Marsh's pocket for years. We don't know if he'll believe us. He has to believe us. Mercy stepped forward. Sammy is his grandson, his blood. If we can show him that, we could lose everything. Hattie cut her off. If Turner stays loyal to Marsh, he'll hand you over himself, along with enough information to hang the rest of us. Mercy felt tears burning behind her eyes. She pushed them back. Then what do we do? Nobody answered. Inside the house, one of the babies started crying, then the other. Mercy turned toward the sound, toward the 2 small lives that depended on her. I have to feed them, she said. She walked back inside, leaving Silas and Hattie to their impossible choices. In the bedroom, she gathered both babies and settled into the rocking chair. Rosie on one side, Sammy on the other. Just like the first night in the barn, they latched on and drank their small bodies, relaxing. Mercy looked at Sammy. Really looked at him for the first time in days. He had Sarah's eyes. Dark brown, almost black. And now that she thought about it, he had something else too. The set of his jaw. The shape of his nose. He looked like Walt Turner, his grandfather, the sheriff who'd been lied to for 2 years, who thought his daughter had abandoned him, Who'd been serving the man responsible for her death? What would he do if he knew the truth? What would anyone do? Mercy closed her eyes and rocked the babies, humming a lullaby her mother used to sing. The melody was sad and sweet, like most things in her life. Outside, she heard Silas and Hattie still talking, planning, arguing. They wanted to fight, to expose Marsh, to bring him down. But Mercy knew something they didn't. Men like Marsh didn't go down easy. They took everyone around them down too. Burned everything. Salted the earth. She'd seen it happen. She'd survived it. And now, with 2 babies in her arms and a borrowed family that might not last the week, she had to decide. Run and keep running forever. Or fight and risk losing everything. Neither choice was good. Neither choice was safe. But then nothing in Mercy Dawson's life had ever been safe. The babies finished nursing. Mercy burped them both, changed them, laid them back in the bed. They fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from the chaos of their small lives. She stood over them, watching them breathe. Rosie, Silas's daughter, 4 months old, nearly died because a whole town turned its back on her father. Sammy, Sarah Turner's son, 11 months old, born in secret, hidden away his existence, ashamed to be concealed. Both of them innocent. Both of them helpless. Both of them hers now, whether she'd chosen them or not. Mercy touched the knife at her waist, felt the cold metal through the fabric of her dress. Then she walked back to the kitchen. Silas and Hattie looked up as she entered. "I know how to get the ledgers," Mercy said. Silas frowned. "How?" "Marsh has a routine. Every Sunday he goes to church. Service lasts 2 hours. His house is empty. He'll have guards. 2. At the front gate. They play cards in the guardhouse. Don't patrol." Hattie leaned forward. "How do you know all this?" "Because I lived there." Mercy's voice was flat. "For 12 months. I know every way in and out of that house. I know where he keeps his keys, his safe combination, his secrets." She paused. "I know where he's vulnerable." Silas and Hattie exchanged a look. "It's too risky," Silas said. "If you get caught, then I get caught. Marsh gets what he wants. You get to keep Rosie." Mercy shrugged. "Not the worst trade." "That ain't how this works." Silas stood. "We're not sacrificing you to save ourselves." "Why not everyone else has?" The words hung in the air, stark and painful. Silas crossed to her, knelt so they were eye to eye. "Not me," he said quietly. "Not ever. You understand." Mercy stared at him, looking for the lie, the catch, the moment when he'd turn out to be just like everyone else. She didn't find it. "Sunday's 4 days away," Hattie said, breaking the silence. "That's 4 days of Marsh searching, 4 days of hiding, 4 days of anything going wrong. Then we hide well." Silas stood. "We stay alert, and when Sunday comes, we move." "We?" Mercy asked. "We." Silas's voice was firm. "You ain't doing this alone." Mercy felt something shift in her chest, something she'd thought was dead forever. Hope. Dangerous, foolish hope. She pushed it down. Hope was a luxury she couldn't afford, but she nodded anyway. "Sunday," she said. "We'll be ready." Outside, the wind picked up again. More snow coming, more cold, more danger. But inside the Brennan ranch, 3 people made a plan to take down a monster, and 2 babies slept on, dreaming of nothing but warmth and milk, and the heartbeat of the girl who'd saved them all. Sunday came with a silence that felt like held breath. Mercy stood at the window watching the road. No riders, no movement, just snow and stillness and the weight of what they were about to do. Behind her, Hattie finished strapping a pistol to her hip. "You sure about this?" the older woman asked. "No." Mercy turned from the window. "But I'm doing it anyway." Silas came in from checking the horses, stamping snow from his boots. His face was grim. "Church bells will ring in 20 minutes. Marsh never misses a service, never leaves early." 2 hours, Mercy said. "That's all we need." "That's more than we need if something goes wrong." Mercy met his eyes. They'd had this argument 3 times already. She was tired of having it. "I know that house better than anyone alive. I know where he keeps the ledgers. I know the safe combination." She touched the knife at her waist. "And I know how to get out if things go bad." "You're 13 years old." "I'm old enough." Silas looked like he wanted to argue more, but Hattie cut in. "Let her go, Silas. Girl's got more steel in her spine than most grown men. Besides," she added with a grim smile, "we ain't got a better plan." The church bells began to ring in the distance, deep sonorous tones that rolled across the valley like a summons. Mercy took a breath. "It's time." Silas handed her a small leather satchel. "For the ledgers. There's also matches in there and a candle. His study doesn't have windows facing the street." Mercy tucked the satchel under her coat. Hattie had found her proper clothes yesterday, a boy's shirt and trousers easier to move in than a dress, boots that actually fit, a cap to hide her hair. "I'll be at the north fence," Silas said. "If anything goes wrong, you run straight there. Don't stop. Don't look back. And the babies. Hattie will stay with them." Silas's voice softened. "They'll be safe. I promise." Mercy nodded. She'd said goodbye to Rosie and Sammy an hour ago, feeding them one last time, holding them close. Just in case. She didn't let herself think about the just in case. 2 hours, she said. "I'll be back before you know it." She slipped out the back door before either of them could say anything else. The walk to town took 40 minutes through the back trails, avoiding the main road. Mercy moved quickly, keeping to the tree line, her breath clouding in the cold air. Her heart hammered with every step. This was insane. She knew it was insane. Breaking into the house of the most powerful man in the county to steal evidence that could destroy him. If she got caught, Marsh would kill her. Not quickly, not kindly. But if she didn't try, he'd hunt her forever. Hunt Sammy. Maybe even hurt Rosie and Silas just for helping her. Some choices weren't really choices at all. The edge of town appeared through the trees. Mercy stopped, pressing herself against a thick pine, scanning for movement. Sunday morning. The streets were empty. Everyone was at church listening to Reverend Crawford drone on about sin and salvation, while the biggest sinner in the county sat in the front pew. Marsh's house stood on the hill overlooking the town. Big white columns, black shutters, a wrought iron fence surrounding the property, and the guardhouse at the front gate where 2 men sat playing cards just like Mercy remembered. She circled wide, approaching from the back where the servants' entrance was hidden by overgrown hedges. The lock was old rusty. She'd picked it a dozen times when she lived here, sneaking out to steal food from the kitchen after Marsh locked her in the cellar. Her fingers remembered the motions. Twist, lift, turn. The lock clicked open. Mercy slipped inside. The house was dark and silent. Marsh had dismissed most of the servants months ago, couldn't risk too many witnesses, Mercy figured. Only the cook remained, and she'd be at church too, sitting in the back where the help sat. Mercy moved through the familiar hallways, her footsteps silent on the thick carpets. Past the kitchen, past the dining room, past the parlor where Marsh entertained his wealthy guests, to the study. The door was locked. Of course it was. But Marsh kept a spare key hidden in the grandfather clock in the hallway. 3rd shelf from the top behind the pendulum mechanism. Mercy's fingers found it in the darkness. She unlocked the study door and stepped inside. The smell hit her first. Tobacco and old leather and something else, something that made her stomach turn. This was where he'd beaten her, where he'd called her demon-touched and cursed and worse, where he'd told her exactly what would happen to Sammy if she didn't behave. Mercy pushed the memories down. Later. She could fall apart later. Right now she had work to do. The painting of Marsh's dead wife hung over the fireplace. Miriam Marsh, according to the brass plate beneath it. Died of fever 10 years ago. Mercy had never believed that. She'd seen the way Marsh talked about his wife. The satisfaction in his voice. The cruelty. Women didn't survive Ezekiel Marsh. She lifted the painting carefully, revealing the safe behind it. A combination lock. 4 numbers. Marsh thought he was clever using his wedding anniversary, like nobody would ever guess. Mercy turned the dial. Right to 6, left to 14, right to 72, left to 0. June 14th, 1872. The safe clicked open. Inside stacks of paper. Cash. A velvet box that probably held jewelry. And there, beneath it all, 3 leather-bound ledgers. Mercy grabbed them, stuffing them into her satchel. Her hands were shaking. She was closing the safe when she heard it. Footsteps. Coming down the hallway. Mercy's blood turned to ice. She looked around frantically. The window was too small. The door was the only way out, and someone was coming. The closet. In the corner. She'd hidden there before when Marsh was in one of his moods. Mercy darted across the room and pressed herself into the narrow space, pulling the door almost closed. Through the crack, she could see the study door. It opened. A woman stepped inside. She was maybe 50, with graying hair and a face that had once been beautiful. She moved carefully, like someone used to being invisible. Her eyes swept the room and landed on the safe. Still open. Mercy had forgotten to close it. The woman went still. "I know you're here," she said quietly. "I saw you come in through the servants' entrance." Mercy didn't breathe, didn't move. "I'm not going to hurt you." The woman's voice was strange, gentle, almost sad. "And I'm not going to tell Ezekiel. But I need to know who you are." Silence stretched. Mercy's legs were cramping. Her heart was pounding so loud she was sure the woman could hear it. "Please," the woman said. "I've been waiting years for someone brave enough to do what you're doing. Don't run away now." Something in her voice made Mercy believe her, against all logic, against all experience. She pushed open the closet door. The woman turned, her eyes widened. "You're the girl," she breathed. "The one Ezekiel's been searching for. Mercy, isn't it?" Mercy's hand went to her knife. "How do you know my name?" "Because I've been watching you since you arrived at that orphanage." The woman took a step closer. "I'm Miriam Marsh." Mercy's world tilted. "You're dead." "That's what Ezekiel tells everyone." Miriam smiled, but it was bitter. Easier than admitting his wife ran away. Easier than explaining why. "I don't understand." "No, I don't suppose you do." Miriam glanced at the safe, at the empty space where the ledgers had been. "You took them." "Good. That's good." "Why are you helping me?" Miriam's face changed. Something dark moved behind her eyes. "Because 12 years ago, I found out what my husband really was. What he did to those girls, those babies." Her voice cracked. "I tried to stop him. He locked me in the attic for 6 months, beat me until I agreed to play dead, to disappear." "Where have you been?" "Here. In this house. In the servants' quarters, where no one looks twice at an aging housekeeper." Miriam's jaw tightened. "Watching. Waiting. Gathering evidence of my own." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small book. "My journal. Every crime I've witnessed in 10 years. Names, dates, details." She pressed it into Mercy's hands. "Take it. Add it to what you found. And burn Ezekiel Marsh to the ground." Mercy stared at her. At this woman who'd been a ghost for a decade. Who'd lived under her monster husband's roof, invisible, powerless, waiting for someone to finish what she couldn't. "Why didn't you run?" "Where would I go?" Miriam's voice was weary. "He owns the law, the courts, everyone. If I'd run, he would have found me. Killed me for real this time." She touched Mercy's face gently. "But you, child, you're different. You're young enough to disappear. Strong enough to fight. And you've got something I never had. What? People willing to die for you. Mercy's eyes burned. She wouldn't cry. She wouldn't. You should come with me, she said. Testify against him. Miriam shook her head. If I disappear the same day those ledgers go missing, he'll know. He'll hunt you harder. But if I stay, if I pretend nothing's wrong... She smiled sadly. I can buy you time. He'll figure it out eventually. Eventually isn't today. Miriam stepped back. Go, child. The service will be ending soon. You need to be gone before he returns. Mercy tucked Miriam's journal into her satchel alongside the ledgers. So much evidence. So many crimes. Enough to destroy Ezekiel Marsh forever, if she could get it to the right people. Thank you, she whispered. Miriam nodded. Make it count. Mercy slipped back through the servants' entrance, her satchel heavy against her hip. She was halfway across the back garden when the church bells began to ring again. Service was ending early. Her heart seized. Something was wrong. She broke into a run, abandoning caution. Through the hedges, into the tree line, down the trail toward the north fence where Silas was waiting. But Silas wasn't there. Instead, 3 men on horseback blocked the path. Deputy Baker in the center, his square face split by a triumphant grin. Well, well, he said. Look what we caught. Mercy spun to run, but more men emerged from the trees behind her. 4 of them, all armed. She was surrounded. Don't make this hard, girl. Baker dismounted, drawing a pair of iron shackles from his saddlebag. Mr. Marsh just wants to talk. Mr. Marsh can go to hell. Baker's grin widened. Got a mouth on you, don't you? We'll see how long that lasts. He reached for her. Mercy's knife was in her hand before she knew she'd drawn it. She slashed at Baker's arm, feeling the blade bite flesh. He screamed and stumbled back. Grab her! He shouted. Don't let her get away! Mercy ran. She ducked under one man's grasping arms, dodged another's tackle. The trees were close. If she could just reach them, something slammed into her from behind. She hit the ground hard, the breath exploding from her lungs. Hands grabbed her arms, her legs pinning her down. Got her! Someone shouted. Mercy fought, bit, scratched, kicked, but there were too many, and she was too small. They flipped her onto her back. Baker loomed over her, blood dripping from the gash on his arm, fury twisting his features. You're gonna pay for that, he snarled. He drew back his fist. The gunshot split the air. Baker froze, his fist still raised. One of his men crumpled, clutching his shoulder. Next one goes through your head, Baker. Silas Brennan stepped out of the trees. Rifle raised, face like stone. Behind him came Hattie, pistol drawn. And behind her, Sheriff Walt Turner. Mercy's heart stopped. Turner looked old. Older than she remembered from the few times she'd seen him at the orphanage. His face was gray, his eyes red-rimmed, but his hand was steady on his gun. Let her go, Turner said quietly. Baker's face went pale. Sheriff, I said let her go. The men holding Mercy released her. She scrambled to her feet, putting distance between herself and Baker. Turner walked forward until he was face to face with his deputy. I got a visit this morning, he said. From Hattie Caldwell. She told me a story about my daughter Sarah. Baker's throat bobbed. I don't know what she told you, but she told me Sarah didn't run off with some salesman. Turner's voice was deadly calm. She told me Sarah was at Marsh's orphanage, pregnant, scared, and that she died there giving birth to a son I never knew existed. That's a lie. Marsh said, Marsh is a liar. Turner grabbed Baker's collar, yanking him close. And you've been helping him, for years. You've been helping him steal babies and hurt women and God knows what else, all while wearing that badge. I didn't have a choice. He would have ruined me. So you let him ruin everyone else instead. Turner released Baker with a shove that sent him stumbling. You're under arrest, all of you. Throw down your weapons. Baker's men looked at each other. Without their leader's confidence, they were just hired thugs. One by one, They dropped their guns. Baker didn't. "You can't do this," he said, his voice rising. "Marsh owns this town, owns you. When he finds out, Turner interrupted, "I'll be waiting for him." He cocked his pistol. "Weapon, now." For a moment, it looked like Baker might fight. His hand twitched toward his holster. Then his shoulders slumped, and he let his gun fall. Smart choice. Turner gestured to Silas. "Tie them up. We're taking them back to town." As Silas moved to secure the prisoners, Turner turned to Mercy. "You're Sarah's girl," he said quietly. "The one who took care of my grandson." Mercy's throat was tight. "Sammy. His name is Sammy." Turner's eyes glistened. "She named him after my father." "She loved him." Mercy's voice cracked. "She made me promise to keep him safe. I tried. I'm still trying." Turner reached out and put a hand on her shoulder. His grip was gentle. "You did good, girl. Better than any of us." Mercy felt something break inside her. The wall she'd built around her heart, the one that kept the tears at bay. She didn't cry. Not yet. But she let herself lean into Turner's hand just for a moment. Just long enough to remember what it felt like to be protected. "We got the ledgers," she said, pulling herself together. "Everything Marsh has done. Names, dates, money. It's all here." She pulled the satchel over her head and held it out. Turner took it, opened it, looked at the ledgers, at Miriam's journal. His face went white. "My God," he whispered. This is everything." Enough to bring him down. Enough to hang him 10 times over. Turner looked up at her. "Where did you get the journal?" "His wife. She's alive. She's been hiding in the house for 10 years, waiting for someone to finish what she started." Turner stared at her. Then he laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "Miriam Marsh, I'll be damned." He shook his head. "Ezekiel's been living with his own ghost and he never even knew it." "What happens now?" Mercy asked. Turner's face hardened. "Now we end this." He turned to Silas. "Get these men locked up. I'm going to the church. You're going to arrest him yourself. I'm going to give that monster a chance to come quietly." Turner's smile was cold. "And when he doesn't, I'm going to enjoy what comes next." He mounted his horse and rode toward town, the satchel of evidence clutched against his chest. Mercy watched him go. Silas came to stand beside her. "You all right?" "I don't know." She looked down at her hands. They were shaking. "I've been scared so long I forgot what anything else feels like." "That's going to change." Silas put an arm around her shoulders. "I promise you that's going to change. Don't make promises you can't keep." "I don't." He squeezed her gently. "Come on, let's get back to the ranch. Hattie's probably wearing a hole in the floor worrying about us." They walked together through the snow, leaving Baker and his men tied up for Turner's deputies to collect. The church bells had stopped ringing. Somewhere in town, Ezekiel Marsh was about to discover that his empire was crumbling. And somewhere on a ranch 3 miles away, 2 babies were waiting for the girl who'd saved them both. Mercy walked faster. She was almost home. The ranch came into view just as the sun began to set, painting the snow in shades of gold and pink. Hattie was standing on the porch, rifle in hand, watching the road. When she saw them, her whole body sagged with relief. "Thank the Lord," she breathed as they approached. "I was about ready to come looking." "Ran into some trouble," Silas said. "It's handled." Turner went to arrest Marsh himself. Hattie's eyebrows rose. The sheriff grew a spine. Will wonders never cease. Mercy pushed past them into the house. She needed to see the babies, needed to hold them, needed to know they were safe. She found them in the bedroom, both asleep in the big bed surrounded by pillows. Rosie's cheeks were pink and healthy. Sammy was clutching a corner of the blanket, his mouth moving in his sleep like he was dreaming of milk. Mercy sank into the chair beside the bed and let the tears come. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. Marsh was going to fall. Turner had the evidence. And somewhere in that monster's own house, Miriam Marsh was finally going to see justice done. It wasn't over yet. Mercy knew that. There would be trials testimonies, people who wouldn't believe her. Marsh had friends, powerful friends who might try to protect him. But for the first time in her life, Mercy Dawson wasn't alone. She had Silas, Hattie, Turner, even Miriam in her own strange way. She had a family. The door creaked. Silas appeared in the doorway. "Mind if I join you?" Mercy wiped her eyes. "It's your house." He sat in the other chair, looking at the sleeping babies. "You did something incredible today," he said quietly. "Something most grown men wouldn't have the courage to do." "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice." Silas leaned forward. "You chose to fight. You chose to risk everything for people who couldn't protect themselves. That's not nothing, Mercy. That's everything." Mercy looked at Rosie, at the daughter of the man sitting beside her. "I didn't want her to die," she said. "That first night in the barn, I heard her crying and I couldn't walk away." "I know. Is that what a mother feels like? That thing that makes you stop even when you should keep running?" Silas was quiet for a long moment. "Yes," he finally said. "That's exactly what it feels like." Mercy nodded slowly. She reached out and touched Rosie's cheek, feeling the warmth of life beneath her fingers. "I'm scared," she admitted, "of what comes next, of what happens when this is all over." "What do you want to happen?" The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked her what she wanted before. She hesitated. "I want to stop running. I want Sammy to grow up safe. I want Rosie to know her daddy loves her." She paused. "I want to belong somewhere." Silas reached over and took her hand. "Then stay," he said simply. "Here, with us. We're not much of a family yet, but we could be, if you're willing." Mercy looked at him. At this man who'd taken her in without question, who'd risked everything to protect her, who'd stood beside her when no one else would. "You mean it?" "I don't say things I don't mean." Silas squeezed her hand. "You saved my daughter's life, Mercy. You gave me a reason to keep going when I was ready to give up. The least I can do is give you a home." Mercy felt the tears threatening again. She blinked them back. "What about Sammy? What about him? Boy needs a family too, needs a grandfather who loves him." Silas smiled slightly. "And a sister who'd do anything to protect him." "I'm not his sister." "You've been his mother, his protector, and his whole world for 11 months. I'd say that makes you whatever you want to be." Mercy looked at the sleeping babies, at the 2 small lives that had changed everything. Then she looked at Silas. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll stay." Silas nodded. No big speeches, no dramatic promises. Just acceptance. Just family. From somewhere outside, they heard hoofbeats approaching. Hattie's voice calling out a challenge. A man's voice responding. Silas stood, hand moving to his gun. "Stay here," he said. "Keep the babies safe." He left the room. Mercy heard the front door open, heard voices, Silas, Hattie, and someone else. A voice she didn't recognize. Then Silas called her name. "Mercy, you'd better come out here." She gathered Rosie in one arm and Sammy in the other, carrying them with her to the front room. Sheriff Turner stood just inside the door. His face was pale, his clothes disheveled. There was blood on his sleeve. "What happened?" Mercy demanded. Turner looked at her, at the babies in her arms. "Marsh is dead," he said. The room went silent. "Dead?" Silas repeated. "How?" "Shot himself. When I walked into that church and read out the charges, when I told him we had his ledgers, his wife's journal, enough evidence to hang him." Turner shook his head. He pulled a derringer from his pocket and put it under his chin. Mercy felt the world tilt. She'd imagined Marsh's downfall 1,000 times. A trial, a conviction, the satisfaction of watching him face justice. Not this, not a quick escape into death. That's it. Her voice was barely a whisper. He just killed himself. That's how it ends. Turner's face was grim. That's how cowards end. They can't face the consequences of their actions, so they run. He looked at Sammy, at his grandson. But at least he can't hurt anyone else. At least the girls at that mine, the babies he sold, they'll be found. They'll be saved. The mine. Mercy felt sick. Did you send someone? Deputies are on their way now, along with a doctor and as many wagons as we could gather. Turner's voice cracked. We're going to bring them home, Mercy. All of them. Thanks to you. Mercy held the babies tighter. Rosie stirred against her shoulder. Sammy made a soft sound in his sleep. It was over. Really over. Marsh was dead. His crimes were exposed. The women at the mine would be rescued. The stolen babies might be found. And Mercy Dawson was finally truly free. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so she did both. Hattie wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. It's all right, the older woman murmured. Let it out. You've earned it. Mercy sobbed into Hattie's shoulder, still clutching the babies, still shaking with emotions she couldn't name. Relief, grief, anger, hope. All of it mixed together, pouring out of her like water from a broken dam. When she finally pulled back, wiping her eyes, Turner was watching her. That boy, he said softly, nodding toward Sammy. He's all I have left of Sarah. I know I don't have any right to ask, but could I hold him? Mercy looked at Sammy, at his dark eyes so like his mother's, at the way he'd learned to trust her, to reach for her, to call her mama, even though she wasn't. She handed him to Turner. The sheriff cradled his grandson carefully, like he was made of glass. His weathered face crumpled. He's beautiful, Turner whispered. He looks just like her. He does. Mercy's voice was steady now. She'd be proud of him. He's strong, stubborn. Survived things no baby should have to survive. Turner looked up at her. Because of you. Because of her. She gave him to me, trusted me to keep him safe. Turner nodded slowly. Then he did something unexpected. He knelt down, bringing himself to Mercy's eye level. Thank you, he said, for my grandson, for everything. I owe you a debt I can never repay. Mercy felt the last of her walls crumble. Just love him, she said. That's all I want. Just love him like Sarah would have. I will. Turner's voice was thick with emotion. I swear I will. He handed Sammy back to her, then stood wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. I should go, he said. There's work to be done, but I'll be back. Tomorrow, if that's all right. It's all right. Silas stepped forward. This is your family too now. You're always welcome. Turner nodded. He looked around the room at Silas, Hattie, Mercy, the babies. Strange how things work out, he said quietly. A week ago I thought I'd lost everything. Now, he shook his head. Now I've got more than I ever expected. He walked out into the cold evening, mounting his horse and riding toward town. Mercy watched him go. Then she turned to Silas. Is this real? She asked. Is this actually happening? Silas smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him since they met. It's real, he said. It's all real. Mercy looked down at Rosie and Sammy, at the two babies who'd brought her here to this place, to these people. Her family. Her home. The word felt strange in her mind. She'd never had a home before, never had anywhere that was truly hers. But now, standing in this warm kitchen with people who loved her, who'd fought for her, who'd risked everything to keep her safe. Now she did. Mercy Dawson smiled, and for the first time in 13 years, she let herself believe that everything was going to be all right. 3 days after Marsh put a bullet through his own skull, the wagons came down from Blackstone Mine. Mercy stood on the porch watching them approach. 14 wagons in a slow, solemn procession, each one carrying women too weak to walk, too broken to speak. Hattie gripped her arm. You don't have to see this. Yes, I do. The first wagon rolled past the ranch heading toward town. Mercy caught a glimpse of the woman inside. Young, maybe 20. Hollow eyes staring at nothing. She'd seen that look before. In the mirror. In the eyes of girls at the orphanage who'd stopped fighting. How many? She whispered. 37. Hattie said quietly. That's how many they found alive. And dead. Hattie didn't answer. She didn't have to. Sheriff Turner rode up on his horse, his face gray with exhaustion. He hadn't slept since the night Marsh died. None of them had. We got them all, he said. Every woman, every girl still breathing. Doc Harrison's setting up the church hall as a hospital. The babies? Mercy asked. Turner's jaw tightened. Records show 43 infants were sold in the last 5 years. We're sending telegrams to every city back east. It'll take time, but we'll find them. 43 babies. 43 families torn apart. Mercy felt sick. There's something else. Turner dismounted, his movements stiff. Something you should know. What? He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a worn leather book. We found this in the mine office. It's a secondary ledger. Names of the girls who died there. Dates. Causes. He held it out to Hattie. Your daughter's name is in here. Hattie went still. Completely, terrifyingly still. Josephine? She whispered. I'm sorry, Hattie. Turner's voice cracked. According to the record, she died 3 months after she arrived. Fever, it says, but... He shook his head. We both know what that means. Hattie took the ledger. Her hands were shaking. Where is she? Where did they... There's a burial ground behind the mine. Unmarked graves. We're working to identify everyone, but it'll take time. Hattie opened the ledger, flipping through pages until she found what she was looking for. Her breath caught. She was pregnant, she said. When she disappeared, she was pregnant. Nobody spoke. The baby. Hattie's voice was barely audible. What happened to the baby? Turner looked at Mercy, then back at Hattie. Sold, he said. According to the records, a baby girl was sent to a family in Philadelphia, 3 weeks after Josephine died. Hattie's legs gave out. Silas caught her before she hit the ground. I have a granddaughter, she whispered. Somewhere out there, I have a granddaughter. Mercy felt tears streaming down her face. For Hattie, for Josephine, for all the mothers and daughters and babies torn apart by one man's greed. We'll find her. Silas helped Hattie to the porch steps. We'll find her if it takes the rest of our lives. Hattie clutched the ledger to her chest, rocking back and forth. 12 years, she moaned. 12 years I wondered. 12 years I hoped she was alive somewhere happy living her life. And all this time... She couldn't finish. Mercy sat down beside her, taking her hand. Josephine loved you, she said quietly. I never met her, but I know she did. Because you're the kind of mother worth loving. Hattie looked at her eyes, red with grief. How do you know that? Because you're here. Mercy squeezed her hand. Because when a stranger girl showed up with a baby, you didn't turn away. You helped. You fought. You risked everything. That's exactly what a good mother does. What Josephine would have done. Mercy paused. What she did in the end. She kept her baby safe long enough for someone to save her. Hattie broke down completely, then sobbing into Mercy's shoulder. The older woman who'd been so strong, so fierce, finally letting herself grieve. Silas and Turner stepped back, giving them privacy. I should get back to town, Turner said quietly. There's still work to do. Wait. Silas grabbed his arm. Something's been bothering me since that night. How did you know about Sarah, about Sammy, about all of it? Hattie told you, but how did she know? Turner's face changed. Something complicated moved behind his eyes. "I've been wondering the same thing," he admitted. "Hattie showed up at my door Sunday morning with information she couldn't possibly have. Details about Sarah, about the orphanage, about Marsh's operations." "Where did she get it?" "She said a woman came to her. Night before. Wouldn't give her name. Just handed her a packet of documents and disappeared." Silas frowned. "What kind of documents?" "Letters. Sarah's letters. The ones she wrote to me from the orphanage that I never received." Turner's voice broke. "She was begging me to come get her, telling me she was pregnant, scared that Marsh was threatening her. And I never knew. I never—" Someone intercepted them. "Marsh had people at the post office. Must have caught every letter she sent." Turner wiped his eyes. "But someone kept them. Someone held on to them all these years and decided now was the time to use them." Silas thought about Miriam Marsh hiding in her husband's house for a decade, watching, waiting, gathering evidence. "I think I know who," he said. Before he could explain, a rider appeared on the road, coming fast, everyone tensed. After everything that had happened, strangers approaching were still cause for alarm. But as the rider drew closer, Mercy recognized him. Patrick Holloway, the postman who'd delivered messages for them before. "Brennan," Patrick shouted, reining in hard. "You need to come to town, now." "What's wrong?" "It's Miriam Marsh. She's at the church hall. She's asking for the girl. Says she has something important to tell her." Mercy's heart lurched. "Miriam's alive. She made it alive and talking." Patrick's face was grim. "But there's something else. Something about your wife, Brennan. You need to hear it yourself." Silas went pale. "Clara? Just come, both of you. Hurry." The ride to town was the longest 20 minutes of Mercy's life. She sat in front of Silas on his horse, clinging to his jacket, her mind racing. Miriam Marsh was alive. She'd survived, and she had something to say about Clara Brennan. What did Marsh's wife know about Silas's dead wife? The church hall was chaos when they arrived. Women from the mine lay on makeshift beds. Doctors moved between them. Volunteers from town carried water and blankets. And there, in a corner away from the others, sat Miriam Marsh. She looked different than she had in Marsh's study. Smaller, older, like the weight of the secret she'd carried had finally crushed her. She looked up as Mercy approached. "You came," she said. "I wasn't sure you would." "You asked for me." "I did." Miriam's eyes moved to Silas standing behind Mercy. "And you must be Mr. Brennan, Clara's husband." Silas's whole body went rigid. "You knew my wife." "I knew of her." Miriam gestured to the chair beside her bed. "Sit down, please. What I have to tell you isn't easy." Silas sat. Mercy remained standing close enough to touch him if he needed it. "Clara worked for my husband," Miriam began. "Years ago, before she married you. She was his secretary for 6 months." "I know that." "Did you know why she left?" Silas shook his head. Miriam sighed. "She discovered what Ezekiel was doing. The babies, the girls, the money. She was young, idealistic. She thought she could stop him." Mercy watched Silas's face, watched the color drain from it. "She gathered evidence," Miriam continued. "Documents, ledgers, letters. Enough to destroy Ezekiel if it got into the right hands. But before she could do anything with it, Ezekiel found out." "What happened?" "He threatened her. Told her if she went to the authorities he'd ruin her family. Her father owed Ezekiel money, a lot of money. If she talked, he'd call in the debt and destroy them." Miriam paused. "So Clara ran. Left town, started a new life, married a rancher on the edge of the county." Silas's hands were shaking. "She never told me any of this. She was protecting you, protecting herself. She thought if she stayed quiet, stayed away, Ezekiel would forget about her." Miriam's voice dropped. "He didn't forget." Mercy felt cold. What do you mean? Miriam looked at her with ancient, tired eyes. 2 weeks before Clara Brennan died, Ezekiel sent her a gift. Tea specially blended. A peace offering, he called it. Congratulations on her pregnancy. Silas stopped breathing. Clara didn't drink it, Miriam said. She was too smart for that. She threw it away. But Ezekiel had a backup plan. One of the ranch hands, a man named Jeb Carlson, had been on Ezekiel's payroll for years. Carlson. Silas's voice was barely a whisper. He left right after Clara died. Said he had family emergency back east. He didn't go east. Ezekiel paid him to disappear. Miriam reached out and touched Silas's hand. I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan. Your wife didn't die in childbirth. She was murdered. The world went silent. Mercy watched Silas's face crumple, watched the grief and rage war behind his eyes. She reached out and put her hand on his shoulder. How do you know this? Silas's voice was raw. How do you know any of this? Because Ezekiel told me. Miriam's jaw tightened. He liked to brag, liked to remind me that no one escaped him. Not Clara, not the girls at the mine, not me. Why are you telling me now? Because he's dead. Miriam smiled, but it was bitter. Because for the first time in 10 years, I'm free to tell the truth. And because Clara Brennan was the bravest woman I ever knew of, and she deserves to have her story told. Silas sat in silence for a long moment. Then he walked to the window and stared out at the town he'd called home for 5 years. The town that had let a monster thrive. The evidence Clara gathered, he said finally. What happened to it? She hid it. Somewhere Ezekiel could never find it. Miriam hesitated. She mentioned once years ago that she'd left instructions, in case anything happened to her. A letter to someone she trusted. Silas turned. A letter. Mercy's heart stopped. She thought about the day Silas had found her in the barn office, the day he'd shown her the small key hidden beneath the floorboard. Safe deposit box, she breathed. In Helena. Clara mentioned it in her letter to Silas. Silas stared at her. How do you know about that? You told me. That first night you were talking about Clara, about the things she'd left behind. You mentioned a key you couldn't figure out. Silas's hand went to his pocket. He'd been carrying the key ever since. A talisman. A connection to his dead wife. I never went to Helena, he said slowly. Never opened the box. I thought it was just personal things. Memories. It might be more than that. Miriam leaned forward. Clara Brennan was meticulous. If she hid evidence, she made sure it would be found when the time was right. Silas looked at Mercy. At this girl who'd stumbled into his life and turned everything upside down. Will you come with me? He asked. To Helena. Mercy nodded without hesitation. Of course. The babies. I'll watch them. Sheriff Turner appeared in the doorway. He'd been listening, Mercy realized. You two go. Do what needs to be done. Hattie and I will keep Rosie and Sammy safe. Silas looked at Turner, at the man who'd been his enemy just days ago, now standing as an ally. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me. Just finish this. Turner's jaw tightened. For Clara. For Sarah. For all of them. The journey to Helena took 3 days. 3 days of hard riding through snow and cold. 3 days of Mercy learning to sit a horse properly, her muscles aching, her mind racing. 3 days of Silas barely speaking, lost in thoughts Mercy couldn't reach. She didn't push him. She understood grief. Understood the way it could swallow you whole if you let it. But she stayed close. Let him know she was there. On the second night, camped beside a frozen creek, Silas finally talked. I keep thinking about all the times I could have asked, he said, staring into the fire. All the times Clara got quiet, got distant, and I just let it go. Figured she'd tell me when she was ready. You trusted her. I was afraid. Silas's voice was rough. Afraid if I pushed, she'd tell me something I didn't want to hear. Something that would change how I saw her. Mercy poked at the fire with a stick. Would what have changed? How you saw her? If she'd told you about Marsh, about the evidence, about all of it, would you have loved her less? Silas was quiet for a long moment. No, he finally said. I would have loved her more, and I would have helped her. We could have faced it together. Then that's what matters. Silas looked at her, at this 13-year-old girl who'd been through more than most people experienced in a lifetime. How'd you get so wise? He asked. I'm not wise. Mercy tossed her stick into the fire. I just know what it feels like to carry secrets, to be afraid of what people will think if they find out the truth. And now, Mercy thought about it. About the milk her body made. About the demon-touched label Marsh had branded her with. About the shame she'd carried for so long. Now I know the truth doesn't matter as much as the people who love you anyway. Silas reached over and squeezed her shoulder. Clara would have liked you, he said. She always did have a weakness for stubborn girls with too much courage. Mercy smiled despite herself. They reached Helena on the afternoon of the third day. A real city bigger than anything Mercy had ever seen. Buildings 3 stories tall. Streets crowded with people. Noise and life and chaos everywhere. The Territorial Bank stood in the center of town, imposing and solid. Silas dismounted outside, helping Mercy down. You ready? He asked. Are you? No. He squared his shoulders. But I'm going in anyway. The bank manager was a thin man with spectacles and a nervous habit of clearing his throat. He examined the key Silas presented, checked his identification, and led them down a narrow staircase to the vault below. Safe deposit box number 247. Silas's hands trembled as he inserted the key. Turned it. Opened the lid. Inside lay a stack of documents, letters, ledgers, photographs, and on top of it all, a sealed envelope addressed to Silas Brennan. Silas picked it up, stared at Clara's handwriting. His eyes filled with tears. Open it, Mercy said gently. She wanted you to find this. Silas broke the seal. The letter inside was 3 pages long, covered in Clara's neat script. Mercy watched his face as he read, watched the emotions play across his features. Grief, anger, love. When he finished, he looked up at her. She knew, he whispered. She knew Marsh would come for her eventually. This was her insurance, her way of making sure he'd pay, even if she wasn't alive to see it. What does it say? Silas handed her the letter. Mercy read, My darling Silas, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth while I was alive. I was afraid. Afraid for you, for our child, for everything we'd built together. But some truths demand to be told even from beyond the grave. Ezekiel Marsh is a monster. I have proof. Everything you need to destroy him is in this box. Names of his accomplices. Records of his transactions. Letters from the families who bought stolen children. Testimonies from girls who survived. Use it. Use all of it. And when Marsh faces justice, tell him Clara Brennan sends her regards. I love you, Silas. I always have. I always will. Take care of our daughter. Tell her about me. Tell her I wanted to be brave enough to see her grow up, but some fights you can't win alone. I wish I'd trusted you with this sooner. I wish I'd let you help me carry this burden. But if you're reading this letter, it means someone else has already started what I couldn't finish. Someone brave enough to bring Marsh down. Help them. Protect them. And when it's over, live the life I wanted for us. Be happy. Be loved. Forever yours, Clara. Mercy folded the letter carefully. Her eyes were wet. She loved you, she said. So much. I know. Silas's voice broke. I always knew. He began going through the documents in the box. Ledgers that matched the ones Mercy had stolen from Marsh's safe. Letters from families in Boston, Philadelphia, New York. Photographs of girls at the orphanage, some of them barely older than Mercy. And at the bottom a list of names. Men who'd helped Marsh. Sheriffs, judges, businessmen. A network of corruption spanning 3 territories. This is everything, Mercy breathed. This is enough to bring down all of them. Not just enough. Silas looked at her, and for the first time since Miriam's revelation, there was something like hope in his eyes. This is proof. Undeniable, irrefutable proof. With this, and what you found in Marsh's safe, we can expose everyone. What do we do with it? Silas gathered the documents carefully. We take it to Judge Wilson, the territorial judge. Clara mentions him in her letter, says he's the one man in Helena Marsh couldn't buy. And then we let justice do its work. Silas stood holding the box of evidence like it was made of gold. Clara started this fight 15 years ago. You picked it up when she couldn't carry it anymore. Now we finish it. Together. Mercy looked at the contents of the box, at the proof of so much suffering, so much evil. And she thought about Rosie and Sammy waiting for her back in Bitter Creek. About Hattie, who might finally find her granddaughter. About all the women rescued from the mine, slowly healing from wounds that might never fully close. Together, she agreed. They walked out of the bank into the cold Helena afternoon, carrying Clara Brennan's legacy between them. And somewhere Mercy hoped Clara was watching. Finally at peace. Judge Wilson read the last page of Clara Brennan's evidence and set it down slowly. His chambers were silent, except for the ticking of a grandfather clock. Outside, Helena hummed with life. Inside, 3 people waited for a verdict that would change everything. Mrs. Brennan was thorough, the judge finally said. Meticulous even. She was a secretary, Silas replied. Records were her life. Wilson nodded. He was 62, silver-haired, with eyes that had seen too much corruption to be surprised by anything. But even he looked shaken by what he'd read. 17 names, he said. Judges, sheriffs, businessmen. Some of the most powerful men in 3 territories. Are you going to arrest them? Wilson looked at Mercy. At this girl who'd walked through fire and come out the other side. Yes, he said. I am. Starting today. Mercy felt something loosen in her chest, something she'd been holding tight for so long she'd forgotten it was there. All of them. Every last one. Wilson stood gathering the documents. This evidence combined with what you recovered from Marsh's safe and what Mrs. Marsh provided leaves no room for doubt. These men built an empire on stolen children and dead women. They'll answer for it. What happens to us? Mercy asked. To me and Sammy. Wilson's face softened. You're not criminals, Miss Dawson. You're witnesses. Heroes, if the newspapers have anything to say about it. He paused. Though I suspect you'd rather avoid that kind of attention. I just want to go home. The word slipped out before Mercy could stop it. Home. She'd never had one before. Now she couldn't imagine being anywhere else. Wilson smiled. Then go home. Raise those babies. Live your life. He looked at Silas. Both of you. You've done more than anyone could ask. Silas shook his hand. Thank you, Judge. Don't thank me. Thank your wife. Wilson's eyes glistened. She was braver than any of us. They walked out of the courthouse into the bright Helena afternoon. Mercy squinted against the sunlight, still not used to being in a city this size. It's really over, she said. Isn't it? The legal part. Silas helped her onto the horse they'd borrowed. The healing part takes longer. How much longer? Silas mounted behind her, taking the reins. As long as it takes. They rode out of Helena as the sun began to set, heading east toward Bitter Creek, toward the ranch. toward the babies and Hattie and Turner and everyone else who was waiting, toward home. The journey back took 4 days, slower than the trip out because they weren't racing against time anymore. They stopped to rest, to eat proper meals, to talk. Silas told Mercy about Clara, about how they'd met, how they'd fallen in love, how she'd made him believe in second chances when he'd given up on himself. Mercy told Silas about her mother, about the woman who'd taught her to be strong to survive, to never give up no matter how dark things got. They grieved together. For Clara, for Sarah, for all the mothers and daughters lost to Marsh's cruelty. And somewhere along the way, they stopped being strangers thrown together by circumstance and became something else. Family. On the third night, camped beside a river that was just starting to thaw, Mercy asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "What happens when we get back?" Silas poked at the fire. "What do you mean?" "I mean, with us, with Rosie and Sammy, with everything." He was quiet for a moment. "I've been thinking about that," he said. "Turner wants Sammy. He's the boy's grandfather. He has a claim." Mercy's heart clenched. "You're going to give him away." "No." Silas looked at her. "I talked to Turner before we left. He doesn't want to take Sammy from you. He just wants to be part of his life." "What does that mean?" "It means we figure it out together. Turner visits, helps raise him. But Sammy stays with us, with you." Silas paused. "If that's what you want?" Mercy felt tears prick her eyes. "You'd do that? Let me keep him. Mercy, that boy would have died without you. You've been his mother in every way that matters. No court in the territory would take him from you, and no decent person would try." She couldn't speak. The lump in her throat was too big. Silas reached over and squeezed her hand. "I talked to the judge about something else too, about making things official. Adoption papers, for you and Rosie both." Mercy stared at him. "You want to adopt me?" "If you'll have me." Silas's voice was rough. "I know I'm not much. Broken down rancher with too many ghosts. But I've got a home. I've got love. And I've got room for 2 more children who need a family." "What about my gift?" Silas didn't flinch. "What about it?" "It makes people uncomfortable, scared." Marsh said, "Marsh was a monster who called everything he didn't understand evil." Silas's voice hardened. "Your gift kept 2 babies alive when nothing else could. That's not a curse. That's a miracle." Mercy couldn't hold the tears back anymore. They spilled down her cheeks hot and fast. "I don't know how to be someone's daughter," she whispered. "That's all right." Silas smiled gently. "I don't know how to be someone's father. Not anymore. But maybe we can figure it out together." Mercy threw her arms around him. He held her tight, letting her cry, not saying anything, because words weren't what she needed. She needed this. Someone to hold on to. Someone who wouldn't let go. "Okay," she finally said, pulling back and wiping her eyes. "Okay, let's be a family." "Yeah." "Yeah." Silas grinned. It transformed his weathered face, making him look younger, lighter. "All right then, let's go home." They reached Bitter Creek on the 4th day, just as the sun was setting. The town looked different somehow. Smaller, quieter. Or maybe Mercy was different, seeing it through new eyes. People stared as they rode through. Some pointed, some whispered. A few nodded respectfully. Word had spread. About Marsh. About the mine. About the girl who'd brought down an empire. Mercy kept her head high. She was done being ashamed. The ranch appeared over the last rise, and Mercy's heart swelled. Hattie was on the porch, Rosie in her arms. Turner stood beside her, bouncing Sammy on his hip. And there, sitting on the steps with a cup of coffee, was Miriam Marsh. Mercy barely waited for the horse to stop before she was off and running. She grabbed Sammy from Turner, holding him close, breathing in his familiar baby smell. "I missed you," she whispered. "I missed you so much." Sammy patted her face with his chubby hand, babbling happily. Rosie started fussing in Hattie's arms, reaching for Mercy. She took her 2-1 baby in each arm, her heart so full it hurt. "Well," Hattie said gruffly, "look who finally decided to come back." Mercy smiled. "Miss me? Don't flatter yourself." But Hattie's eyes were suspiciously bright. Silas dismounted and joined them, clapping Turner on the shoulder. "Any trouble while we were gone?" "None." Turner smiled at Sammy. "Though this one's been asking for his mama. In his own way." "He's been fed and changed and spoiled rotten," Hattie added. "Both of them have." Mercy looked at Miriam sitting quietly on the steps. "You're still here." "Nowhere else to go." Miriam shrugged. "Besides, I wanted to see how it ended." "It ended well." Silas sat down beside her. "Judge Wilson's issuing arrest warrants for everyone on Clara's list. The trials will take months, but they're going to prison. All of them." Miriam nodded slowly. "Good." "There's something else." Silas looked at her seriously. "Wilson wants you to testify. When the trials start, your testimony could seal the case against Marsh's partners." Miriam was quiet for a moment. "I spent 10 years hiding in that house," she finally said. "Watching, afraid. I told myself I was gathering evidence, biding my time. But really, I was just scared." "You helped us," Mercy said, "when it mattered." "Not enough." Miriam stood, smoothing her skirt. "But maybe I can do more now." She looked at Silas. "Tell the judge I'll testify. Tell him I'll tell them everything." Silas nodded. "I will." Miriam walked to the edge of the porch, looking out at the snow-covered land. "It's beautiful here," she said softly. "I'd forgotten what peace looked like." Nobody knew what to say to that. Turner broke the silence. "I should get back to town. Deputies need supervision, and there's still work to be done sorting out Marsh's estate." "You'll come back?" Mercy asked quickly. He smiled. "Try to keep me away." He kissed Sammy's forehead, nodded to the others, and rode off toward town. Hattie cleared her throat. "I suppose I should go too. Things to do at my place." "Stay for dinner," Silas said. "We've got a lot to celebrate." "What kind of celebrating?" Hattie asked suspiciously. Silas looked at Mercy. She nodded. "We're adopting Mercy," he said. "Making it official. And Sammy's staying with us with Turner as part of the family." Hattie's face went through several expressions. Surprise, joy, something that might have been pride. "Well," she said, "about damn time." She pulled Mercy into a fierce hug. "Babies and all." "You deserve this," she whispered. "Don't let anyone tell you different." Mercy hugged her back as best she could with her arms full. "Thank you for everything. Just promise me one thing." "What?" Hattie pulled back, her eyes fierce. "When they find my granddaughter, and they will find her, you'll help me bring her home." "I promise." Hattie nodded, satisfied. Dinner that night was chaotic and loud and wonderful. Hattie had cooked a feast while they were gone: roast chicken, potatoes, fresh bread. They ate until they couldn't move, then sat around the fire telling stories. Stories about Clara, about Sarah, about Josephine. Stories about the women who'd survived and the ones who hadn't. Stories about hope and loss and the stubborn human will to keep going no matter what. Rosie fell asleep in Silas's arms. Sammy passed out on Mercy's lap, exhausted from the excitement. Even Miriam relaxed, the tension slowly leaving her shoulders. For the first time in longer than any of them could remember, the house felt full, not just with people, but with something else. Love. It was a fragile thing, this new family of theirs, built from broken pieces, held together by stubbornness and hope. But it was real, and that was enough. 1 year later, spring came to Bitter Creek like a promise kept. The snow melted. The river thawed. Wildflowers bloomed across the meadows in blankets of yellow and purple. And on a Sunday morning in late April, the Brennan family gathered in the front room of their ranch house for a ceremony that had been a long time coming. Judge Wilson had made the trip from Helena personally. Sheriff Turner stood beside Hattie, both of them dressed in their finest. Miriam Marsh, now Miriam Wheeler, having married old Tom from Silver Ridge in a quiet ceremony the previous fall, watched from a chair by the window. And in the center of it all stood Silas Brennan and Mercy. "By the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming," Wilson intoned, "I hereby declare that Mercy Dawson is now legally Mercy Brennan with all the rights and privileges of a natural-born daughter." Mercy felt the tears coming and didn't try to stop them. "Furthermore," Wilson continued, "I declare that Samuel Turner Brennan—" "Sammy," Mercy interrupted. "His name is Sammy." Wilson smiled. "I declare that Sammy Turner Brennan is hereby adopted into the Brennan household, with Sheriff Walter Turner maintaining legal rights as grandfather and co-guardian." Turner wiped his eyes. He'd been crying since the ceremony started. "And finally," Wilson said, "I acknowledge the continued guardianship of Rosemary Brennan by her father, Silas Brennan, now supported by her sister, Mercy Brennan, in all matters of care and welfare." He set down the paper and looked at them. "Congratulations. You're officially a family." The room erupted in cheers. Hattie whooped loud enough to wake the dead. Turner swept Sammy into his arms, spinning him around. Miriam dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Silas pulled Mercy into a hug. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Being a Brennan?" Mercy looked around the room. At Rosie now walking and babbling, toddling toward her with arms outstretched. At Sammy, almost 2 years old, laughing at his grandfather's silly faces. At Hattie, who'd become the grandmother she never expected to be. At Turner, who'd found redemption in loving the grandson he never knew existed. At Silas, the broken man who'd taken her in and given her everything. "It feels right," she said. Outside, the sun was shining. The apple trees Clara had planted were starting to bloom, new life pushing up through the old ground. "There's something I want to show you," Silas said. "Come on." He led her outside past the barn to the fence line, where a simple wooden marker stood. Clara's grave. But there was something new beside it. A small stone monument freshly carved. Mercy read the inscription. "In memory of the women of Blackstone Mine, and for Josephine Sullivan Caldwell. May they rest in peace. 1870, 1882. Below that, a list of names. Every woman who died in Marsh's mine. Finally remembered, finally honored. "Hattie helped me design it," Silas said quietly. "We put one at the mine too. And at the cemetery in town." Mercy touched the stone, cold beneath her fingers, but somehow warm too. "There's another one coming," Silas continued. "For Sarah Turner. Turner's having it made. It'll go next to her mother's grave." Mercy thought about Sarah, about the woman she'd never met but felt she knew, the woman who'd trusted her with the most precious thing she had. "She'd be glad," Mercy said, "knowing Sammy's safe, knowing her father loves him." "I think she knows." Silas put his arm around her. "Somehow I think they all know." They stood in silence for a moment, honoring the dead. Then Rosie's voice rang out from the house. "Mercy, Mercy!" Mercy smiled. "Duty calls." "Always does." Silas squeezed her shoulder. "Go on. I'll be there in a minute." Mercy walked back toward the house, toward the sound of children and laughter and life, toward her family. She paused at the door and looked back. Silas stood by Clara's grave, his head bowed, saying goodbye maybe, or thank you, or both. Then he straightened, turned and walked toward her, toward their home, toward their future. 3 months later, on a sweltering July afternoon, a telegram arrived from Philadelphia. Hattie opened it with trembling hands, Mercy and Silas beside her. "Found her? Stop. Elizabeth Grace Hartwell. Stop. Age 12. Stop. Family willing to facilitate reunion. Stop awaiting instructions. Stop. Judge Wilson." Hattie sat down hard. "Elizabeth," she whispered. Josephine named her Elizabeth. "Your granddaughter," Mercy said. "They found her." They found her. Hattie looked up, tears streaming down her face. After all this time, they found her. Mercy knelt beside her and took her hand. What do you want to do? Hattie laughed, a wet, broken sound full of joy and grief and hope. I want to meet her. I want to hold her. I want to tell her about her mother. Then we'll make it happen. Silas sat on her other side. We'll bring her home. What if she doesn't want to come? What if her family? Then we'll figure it out, Mercy said firmly. Whatever she needs, whatever makes her comfortable, we'll do it. Hattie gripped her hand tight. You're a good girl, Mercy Brennan. I learned from the best. The reunion took 3 months to arrange. Letters exchanged. Legal papers signed. A trip to Philadelphia by train, Mercy's first time on a railroad. Elizabeth Grace Hartwell was 12 years old with Josephine's eyes and Hattie's stubborn chin. She'd been raised by good people who loved her, but she'd always known she was adopted, always wondered where she came from. When Hattie walked into the Hartwell parlor and saw her granddaughter for the first time, she couldn't speak, couldn't move, could only stand there, tears pouring down her face. Elizabeth stepped forward. Are you my grandmother? Hattie nodded. Did you know my mother? I did. Hattie's voice cracked. She was the best thing I ever did. And you look just like her. Elizabeth smiled Josephine's smile, the one Hattie thought she'd never see again. Tell me about her, she said. Tell me everything. They talked for hours. Hattie told stories about Josephine as a child, as a young woman, as the daughter she'd lost and never stopped loving. Elizabeth listened, laughed, cried. And when it was time to leave, she hugged her grandmother tight. I want to visit Wyoming, she said. I want to see where my mother grew up. You're welcome any time, Hattie promised. For as long as you want. They returned to Bitter Creek as the leaves began to change. Red and gold and orange blanketing the hills. Life settled into a rhythm. Morning chores, afternoon lessons, evening stories by the fire. Rosie took her first steps, then her first fall, then her first words. Mercy came before Papa, which Silas pretended to be offended about, but secretly loved. Sammy grew tall and strong with Sarah's eyes and Turner's laugh. He called Mercy Mama and Turner Grandpa, and Silas Papa Silas, which confused visitors but made perfect sense to the family. Turner came by every Sunday for dinner. Hattie came by whenever she pleased, which was often. Miriam and Tom visited when they could, bringing stories from Silver Ridge and news from the wider world. The trials happened. 17 men went to prison. Some for years, some for life. Judge Wilson made sure justice was done. And slowly, the wounds began to heal. Not completely, never completely. But enough. On Mercy's 14th birthday, Silas gave her something special. A small wooden box carved with flowers and vines. Inside, wrapped in velvet, was Clara's locket. She would have wanted you to have it, Silas said. She always said strong women needed to stick together. Mercy opened the locket. Inside was a tiny photograph of Clara, young and beautiful and full of hope. Thank you, she whispered. There's something else. Silas reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I had the lawyer draw this up. It's official. You inherit everything when I'm gone. The ranch, the land, all of it. Yours and Rosie's and Sammy's to share equally. Mercy stared at the paper. I don't need. It's not about need. Silas took her hands. It's about family. About making sure you're taken care of no matter what happens. Mercy felt the tears coming again. She'd cried more in the past year than in her entire life before, but these were different tears. Good tears. I love you, she said. The words came easily now, though they'd been the hardest to learn. I love you too, kid. Silas pulled her into a hug. Happy birthday. That night, after the cake and presents and laughter, Mercy stood on the porch looking at the stars. She thought about everything that had brought her here. The blizzard, the barn, the babies, the courage to run, and the strength to stay. She thought about Clara, who'd started a fight she couldn't finish. About Josephine, who'd loved her daughter enough to keep her safe. About Sarah, who'd given her baby to a stranger with nothing but hope and trust. About all the mothers living and dead who'd made sacrifices so their children could survive. The door opened behind her. Silas came out, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Can't sleep?" "Too much thinking." He handed her a cup and leaned against the railing beside her. "Good thoughts or bad thoughts?" "Both." Mercy sipped her coffee. "I keep wondering what would have happened if I'd gone a different way that night, if I'd missed the barn, if the door had been locked." "Don't do that to yourself." "I know. She paused, searching for words. "Sometimes I feel like everything that happened was impossible, like it shouldn't have worked out." Silas was quiet for a moment. "You know what Clara used to say about impossible things." "What?" "She said impossible just means it hasn't happened yet. That every miracle starts with someone brave enough to try." Mercy smiled. "She sounds like she was something special." "She was." Silas looked at her. "So are you." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. "I'm glad I found you," Mercy said finally. "That night in the storm. I'm glad I stopped." "Me too, kid." Silas squeezed her shoulder. "Me too." Inside, Rosie started crying. Sammy's voice joined in a moment later, their nocturnal chorus filling the house. Mercy laughed. "Mercy. Duty calls? Always does." They went inside together into the warmth and noise and chaos of family life. Mercy picked up Rosie. Silas took Sammy. They walked the babies through the house, humming lullabies until the crying stopped and sleep returned. In the quiet that followed, Mercy looked around the room she'd once entered as a starving fugitive. Her room now, her home, her family. She thought about the girl who'd walked barefoot through a blizzard with a baby in her arms. The girl who'd been called demon-touched and cursed. The girl who'd believed she was worthless, unwanted, beyond saving. That girl was gone. In her place stood Mercy Brennan. Daughter. Sister. Mother, in all the ways that mattered. She laid Rosie in her crib and kissed her forehead. "Sleep tight, little one. I'll see you in the morning." She crossed to Sammy's bed and tucked the blanket around his chin. "Love you, sweetheart. Always." Then she walked to her own bed, the one with the soft mattress and the warm quilts, the one she'd never had to share with rats or cold or fear, and climbed in. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new reasons to keep fighting, keep hoping, keep loving. But tonight, Mercy Brennan closed her eyes and slept the sleep of the truly blessed. The sleep of someone who had finally, after 13 years of darkness, found her place in the light. The winter had been long and brutal and full of loss. But spring always comes. And love, stubborn, fierce, impossible, love always finds a way.